me last fall. Not for pain, not for disease, but for something harder to explain. He said, "Doctor, I feel like I'm slipping away. My energy, my drive, even my interest in life, it's fading." He looked healthy, but what we uncovered shook him. I'm Dr. James, a men's health specialist with over 30 years of experience helping older men protect their vitality, circulation, and confidence. You've been told that masturbation is normal, even healthy. But after 65, what once helped you can begin to quietly harm you. In this video, I'll reveal the most common mistakes older men make when it comes to self-pleasure. Mistakes that affect not just your body, but your mind and your future. And by the end, I'll show you how one small change could protect your energy, your intimacy, and maybe even your life. Let's begin. Before we continue, if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and tap that button and turn on the bell. That way, you won't miss any honest, age-specific health advice made just for men like you. And if you found this video helpful so far, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0. Your feedback helps me serve you better. So now that we've uncovered why this conversation matters so deeply after 65, let's start with the first and most common mistake. One that quietly begins when we assume our bodies haven't changed. 1. Ignoring how your body has changed after 65. Most men over 65 still treat their bodies as if nothing has changed. They continue with the same patterns they had in their 40s or 50s. Same routines, same pace, same habits. Especially when it comes to something as private and long-standing as masturbation. I understand that. It's comforting to believe our bodies still function like they used to. But I've spent over 3 decades in men's health, and let me tell you, your body after 65 speaks a different language. Circulation slows, hormone levels drop, recovery time increases. Even the skin and nerve tissue become more delicate. But these changes happen quietly. There's no alarm bell, no flashing sign, so you keep going as if nothing's different until something feels off. You're more tired than usual, your sleep quality dips, you feel flat, less motivated, even emotionally numb. And when you look back, it doesn't make sense, because nothing major changed. But the truth is, the way you stimulate your body might no longer serve it. It might actually be slowly wearing it down. One of my patients, a 70-year-old former construction worker, once told me, "I thought feeling drained afterward was just part of getting old. But after a full hormone panel, nervous system assessment, and prostate exam, we found that his long-standing masturbation habit was interfering with his body's ability to recover, regulate dopamine, and maintain sexual health. Something he thought was safe had quietly become harmful." When men ignore these biological shifts, they end up mistaking warning signs for normal aging. They don't realize that their private habits might be taxing the very systems they depend on to feel alive, intimate, and strong. Masturbation isn't the enemy, but doing it the same way at 68 that you did at 38 can backfire in ways you never imagined. So if you've been feeling more depleted than fulfilled after self-pleasure, it's not your imagination. And it's not just age. It's how your body is reacting to a habit that no longer fits. But the next mistake is even more common and far more dangerous. It's one nearly every older man makes, often without realizing it. Let me explain. If you're still watching and these insights are resonating with you, type 1 in the comments to let me know you're still here and paying attention. Now let's keep going with the next important point. 2. Too much frequency, too little recovery. One of the most overlooked mistakes older men make is treating masturbation like it has no cost, no consequences, no limits. In our younger years, recovery was almost instant. A quick release before bed or during a stressful day didn't seem to affect anything. But after 65, that same habit begins to hit differently, whether we notice it or not. I've seen this pattern hundreds of times. A man in his late 60s or 70s comes to me frustrated by chronic fatigue, low mood, or a sharp drop in desire. He's often confused, sometimes even ashamed. "Is this just old age?" he asks. But when I ask about his personal habits, especially masturbation, it usually paints a different picture. Masturbation, especially when it becomes too frequent, quietly depletes the body's natural reserves. It taxes your nervous system, lowers testosterone temporarily, and disrupts the very chemicals that keep you sharp and emotionally stable. Dopamine, oxytocin, even serotonin. But here's the real issue. The older you are, the longer it takes to rebuild those reserves. What used to be a harmless daily ritual may now be exhausting your body's limited energy without giving anything back. And most men never connect the dots. Worse, when masturbation is used to escape loneliness, boredom, or stress, it can become more than just a physical habit. It becomes an emotional crutch. Over time, your body starts to rely on it, even when it no longer serves you. It's like a leaky faucet slowly draining your vitality. You might feel a moment of release, but the hours afterward feel heavy, foggy, detached. I tell my patients that recovery isn't a luxury, it's survival. Your body after 65 needs longer breaks between stimulation. It needs rhythm, patience, and respect. Overuse will not only dull your physical response, it will eventually dull your sense of self. But there's another mistake that takes an even deeper toll. It's not about how often you masturbate, but how you do it. And this next one can quietly reshape the way your brain and body respond to real intimacy. Let's talk about it. 3. Rushing the act without connection. In my years working with older men, I've noticed a pattern that's as common as it is damaging. Masturbation becomes rushed, mechanical, and emotionally disconnected. It turns into something done out of habit or boredom, fast, quiet, almost like checking a box. For men over 65, this rushed approach isn't just unfulfilling, it's harmful. At this age, your body no longer thrives on speed and intensity. It needs gentleness. It needs awareness. When you rush through the act, you activate the stress response in your nervous system, raising cortisol levels, increasing blood pressure, tightening the pelvic floor muscles, and reducing your body's ability to relax afterward. What should be a moment of release becomes a quiet source of physical tension and emotional disconnection. But it goes deeper than that. When you treat your body like a machine, over time, it stops responding to intimacy the way it used to. You begin to associate arousal with stress, not connection. You condition your mind to seek quick pleasure instead of slow presence. Eventually, that same impatience shows up in your relationship, if you're still in one, or in how you view closeness at all. I had one patient, 72 years old, who told me, "I don't even think I feel anything when I touch myself anymore. I just do it." That broke my heart, because pleasure after 65 shouldn't disappear. It just needs to be approached differently. Mindfully, with attention, with care. This isn't about romance or making every moment sacred. It's about giving your body time to respond, to breathe, to process. When you rush, you lose that. And when you lose connection to yourself, you lose the foundation for connection to others. Your nervous system never fully resets. Your emotions stay flat. Your sleep suffers. Your energy drains. But what if I told you there's another mistake? One even more misunderstood. It has nothing to do with speed or technique, but with timing. And when you get it wrong, it can completely disrupt your body's natural rhythm. Let me show you what I mean. If you're still here and finding this information valuable, drop a 1 in the comments to let me know you're with me. Now let's continue on to point number 4. It's one you definitely shouldn't overlook. 4. Poor timing right before sleep or after waking. Timing may not seem important when it comes to something as private as masturbation, but after 65 it plays a much bigger role than most men realize. I've seen so many older patients fall into a pattern that feels harmless at first, late night release to help them sleep, or early morning release to get the day started. It's quiet, familiar, easy, but here's the truth, your body's internal clock no longer responds the way it used to. And when you masturbate at the wrong time, it can throw your entire system off balance. Take nighttime, for example. You think it'll relax you, but instead it often stimulates a brief spike of adrenaline. That momentary release is followed by cortisol rising in your bloodstream, which can interfere with deep sleep and increase restlessness. Instead of drifting off peacefully, your heart rate may stay elevated, your nervous system overstimulated. You might fall asleep eventually, but you wake up feeling like you barely rested. And what about first thing in the morning? That's when your body naturally experiences its highest testosterone surge. But when you ejaculate too early in the day, you may interrupt that rhythm. Your energy dips. You feel emotionally flat, your motivation suffers, and instead of starting your day with strength, you begin it in a state of depletion. A retired teacher once told me, "I always thought it helped me sleep better, but now I realize I've been waking up more tired than when I went to bed." That realization hit him hard, because it wasn't about the act, it was about the timing. When we adjusted his routine, his energy returned, his mind felt clearer. He even said his dreams came back. It's a small shift, but the impact is profound. The older you get, the more important it becomes to work with your body's rhythms, not against them. And that brings us to the next mistake, one that's especially damaging because it doesn't just affect the body, it rewires the brain, and it's becoming more common every single year. Let's talk about it. 5. Using porn as the only stimulus. One of the most common mistakes I see among older men today isn't how often they masturbate or even when. It's what they use to feel aroused. More and more men are turning to screens. Short videos, quick clips, endless scrolling. It seems harmless at first, but over time, this habit rewires your brain in ways most men don't even realize until it's already taken a toll. When you rely on porn as your only source of stimulation, you're not just watching, you're training your brain to respond only to high-speed, exaggerated fantasy. What that does, especially after 65, is desensitize your natural arousal system. You need more and more to feel less and less. Real intimacy begins to feel dull. Your partner's touch might not excite you like it used to. Even your imagination begins to fade, replaced by a need for visual extremes. One man in his 70s sat across from me, head in his hands. "I can't connect with my wife anymore, Doc. I want to. I just feel nothing." It wasn't that he didn't love her. It was that years of solo habits built around screens had silently disconnected his mind from real-life closeness. And it's not just about sexual function. Porn overuse at this stage of life can also increase anxiety, cause sleep disruptions, and even lead to isolation. You lose the emotional balance that comes from healthy, grounded stimulation, and what once brought comfort now brings distance from your partner, from yourself, and from the deeper satisfaction that comes with presence and connection. This isn't about shame, it's about awareness. About knowing that the way you engage with pleasure shapes how you experience the world around you. And if that engagement becomes overly digital, overly artificial, your natural sensitivity, the part that makes you feel alive, can fade. But here's the good news. There's something you can do about it. One small change to protect your energy and closeness. And I'll show you exactly what it is right now. 6. One small change to protect energy and closeness. Sometimes it's not a long list of changes that makes the difference, it's one small, intentional shift. After working with thousands of men over 65, I found that the most powerful change doesn't come from stopping altogether or following strict rules. It comes from choosing to treat your own body with more respect. And that often starts with one simple decision: to be more mindful. It sounds almost too easy. But I've seen men completely transform their energy, their intimacy, and even their outlook on aging by making this one shift. Instead of rushing, they slow down. Instead of zoning out, they stay present. They put the phone away. They stop chasing stimulation and start listening to what their body actually needs. And instead of treating masturbation as a way to escape, they begin to see it as a way to reconnect with themselves, with their partner, with their vitality. One retired firefighter told me, "I started lighting a candle, breathing deeper, just taking a few extra minutes. Sounds silly, but I feel more like a man now than I did at 40. That small ritual, simple, mindful, personal, brought him back to himself. It gave his nervous system a chance to reset. It restored some of the emotional charge that had been missing, and over time it improved his sleep, his energy, and even his mood. Your body still wants to feel. Your mind still wants to connect, but you have to give them a chance to work together, not compete. The older you get, the more every decision counts. And sometimes the most powerful healing comes not from doing more, but from doing things differently. That's the heart of it. A small change, done with care, can reignite a part of you that's been fading quietly. And if there's one thing I want you to remember, it's this: you are not done feeling alive. You just need the right approach. And now, as we bring everything together, let me leave you with a doctor's final word, a reflection on what all this truly means for your health, your relationships, and your future. Conclusion. If you've made it this far, then I want to say something clearly and from the heart. You care about your health, you care about your future, and that already puts you ahead of most men your age. Because talking about something as personal as masturbation, especially after 65, isn't easy. It's rarely discussed in clinics, almost never in families, and yet it quietly affects the energy, vitality, and emotional well-being of millions of older men. What we've explored today isn't about guilt or shame, it's about truth. The truth that your body is changing and that old habits, even the most familiar ones, can begin to work against you if they're not adjusted with care. We talked about how ignoring those physical changes can silently drain your strength. How too much frequency without enough recovery leaves you more tired than restored. How rushing the act disconnects you from your own body. And how poor timing can disturb your hormones and sleep, turning something meant to relieve tension into a hidden source of exhaustion. We also discussed the danger of relying solely on digital stimulation, how it rewires your brain and distances you from real human connection. And finally, we arrived at something deeply important: the power of one small, mindful change. Slowing down, being present, treating yourself not as a machine, but as a living, feeling man who still deserves closeness, care, and dignity. Over the years, I've seen too many good men lose parts of themselves, not because they didn't care, but because no one ever told them the truth. And I believe you deserve that truth, because masturbation isn't the problem. The problem is when it becomes mindless, excessive, or disconnected. When it becomes a way to numb instead of nurture. That's when it starts to take more than it gives. But it doesn't have to be that way. You still have control. You still have the power to adapt, to protect your body, and to preserve the energy and connection that matter most. You don't need to give up pleasure, you just need to relate to it differently. And maybe, just maybe, this conversation has given you the insight to do exactly that. Not just to feel better, but to live better. You're not too old, it's not too late, and there's still more life ahead than you think, if you take care of it now. If this message spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with another man who might need to hear it. Your brother, your friend, even your doctor. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss honest, age-specific advice designed for men over 65. Your health, your confidence, your future, it all matters. Leave a comment below with the number 1 if this helped you today. I read every single one, and your story could be the one that helps someone else take the first step toward lasting change. Last year, he wasn't sick, he wasn't alone, but deep inside he carried quiet struggles, ones he never spoke about, regrets about his health, about his body, about the things he never asked, things he thought he was too old to talk about. But the truth is, those silent mistakes are far more common than you think. My name is Dr. James. I've spent over 30 years helping older men across America reclaim their energy, their confidence, and their connection, not just with others, but with themselves. I've sat across from men who whisper their deepest questions, and I've seen how just a little truth can change a man's life. Because here's what most people never tell you. It's not age that's stealing your strength, it's the small mistakes you've been making for years in silence. Not talking about them doesn't protect you. It slowly wears you down. And when it comes to your intimate health, what you don't know can hurt you. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the 5 most dangerous masturbation mistakes older men make and how they secretly impact your erections, your prostate, your hormones, and even your emotional health. No shame, no judgment, just clear truth, real answers, and tools you can start using today. And mistake number 3, it's the one most men never see coming. The one that drains your energy, lowers your testosterone, and leaves you wondering why you feel so tired all the time. So stay with me, because what you're about to hear could change how you feel in your body and in your life for good. Before we begin, if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and tap that button and make sure the bell is on. I share honest, age-appropriate health advice just for men like you. And if this message speaks to you, type 1 in the comments to let me know. If you'd like to see something different next time, type 0, because your voice truly matters here. Now that we've opened the door to a topic most men avoid, it's time to walk through it together. Because the truth is, the more you understand your body and how it changes with time, the more power you have to care for it. No more silence, no more guessing. Just honest knowledge that can help you feel strong, steady, and confident again. Let's start with the first mistake, and it's one many men carry quietly for decades. Not because they're doing something wrong with their body, but because of what they've been taught to believe about it. Mistake 1, treating it like a dirty secret instead of a health practice. For decades, many of us were taught to keep certain parts of ourselves locked away. We were raised with silence, with shame, and with the belief that if no one talked about it, it would somehow disappear. Masturbation, for men of our generation, wasn't just private, it was taboo. Something to be hidden, hurried, and never acknowledged. And that silence? It didn't protect us, it harmed us. When you carry that mindset into your 60s, 70s, or beyond, it becomes more than just emotional baggage. It becomes a health hazard. Because when you treat masturbation like a dirty secret, you don't give it the space or respect it deserves. You rush through it, filled with guilt or embarrassment. You disconnect from your body. And over time, that disconnection takes a real toll, not just mentally, but physically. I've sat across from too many men in my clinic who can barely talk about this topic without looking away. Good men, strong men, men who have lived through wars, raised families, built careers, yet still feel ashamed of something as natural as sexual release. That shame doesn't just stay in the mind, it lives in the body. It creates tension, anxiety, and a constant spike in cortisol, the very hormone that disrupts sleep, raises blood pressure, and accelerates aging. What's worse, when men feel ashamed, they avoid the subject altogether. They don't ask their doctor questions. They don't seek out healthy techniques or explore what works best for their changing bodies. They let misinformation, or worse, silence, guide their choices. And this leads to real problems. Chronic stress, suppressed desire, reduced testosterone, and even a breakdown in partner intimacy, not because the body has failed, but because the man has been conditioned to feel like his desires are something to be hidden. And here's where it gets dangerous. When you treat masturbation like a dirty act, you unconsciously activate the very systems in your body that counteract its health benefits. Your brain pairs sexual activity with stress instead of relaxation. Your nervous system stays in fight or flight mode instead of shifting into the parasympathetic state where healing and recovery occur. So even if you are engaging in it, your body isn't reaping the rewards because it's been trained to associate the act with guilt and anxiety. This emotional suppression often spills into other areas of life. You begin to withdraw. You speak less to your partner. You stop seeking affection. Your confidence shrinks. Your sleep suffers. And the very thing that once brought you relief and connection becomes a source of tension and isolation. I've seen men lose their marriages, not because of infidelity, not because of physical illness, but because of years of unspoken shame wrapped around their own sexuality. But here's what's most important. It doesn't have to be that way. You can reframe your relationship with your body. You can begin again with respect, with calm, with presence. Masturbation, when approached as a form of self-care rather than secrecy, can be healing. It can reduce stress, help regulate hormones, improve circulation, and strengthen the pelvic floor. It can improve sleep, support prostate health, and even make you feel more connected to yourself and to others, but only if you stop treating it like something shameful. So take a moment to ask yourself, how have you been treating your own desires? With judgment? With guilt? or with curiosity, respect, and care. Because when you shift your mindset, your body follows. It softens, it responds, and it begins to heal in ways you may not have felt in years. And yet, even when a man lets go of shame, there's another silent threat that creeps in. Not what he hides, but what he stops doing altogether. It's a mistake that can slowly weaken the very core of his sexual health without making a sound. That's what we'll uncover next. Mistake 2. Believing you're too old for desire or intimacy. There's a quiet moment I remember vividly from my years in practice. A man in his early 70s sat across from me, neatly dressed, well-spoken, proud of the life he'd built. And yet, when the conversation shifted to intimacy, he lowered his eyes and said something I'll never forget. "Doc, I think those days are just behind me. I'm too old for that now." Too old for what? I asked. For closeness? For touch? For feeling wanted? He paused. "All of it," he said. That belief that aging makes intimacy irrelevant is one of the most dangerous lies a man can carry, and it's not always spoken aloud. Sometimes it's buried in small choices. You stop flirting with your wife. You stop reaching for her hand. You stop taking care of your appearance because deep down you've convinced yourself you're no longer desirable. You tell yourself it's just part of getting older. But what you're really doing is slowly withdrawing from a part of yourself that's still alive. And here's the cost. When you stop believing you're a man worthy of desire, you begin to shrink, not just in your relationships, but in your spirit. Your posture changes, your voice softens, your confidence fades. You no longer walk into a room with presence, you settle into a smaller version of yourself, convincing your body and your brain that passion is a thing of the past. But the body listens. And when you stop showing up for your sexual self, your biology adapts. Testosterone levels dip even faster. Blood flow weakens. Muscle tone declines. Your sleep suffers. Your heart slows. Your brain dulls. Why? Because your system is no longer being called to aliveness. You've turned down the volume on one of the most life-giving forces you possess. You see, intimacy is not just about sex. It's about energy. It's about connection. It's about knowing you still matter, physically, emotionally, and deeply. When you deny your capacity for intimacy, you disconnect from what makes you fully human. I've seen marriages fall into silence because of this belief. Good men who pull away, not because they've stopped loving their partners, but because they believe their partners no longer want them. And women? Many of them are waiting, hoping their husbands will reach out again, hoping they haven't lost him to time. The real tragedy isn't age, it's the stories we tell ourselves about age. Science tells a different story. Research shows that a significant percentage of men in their 70s and even 80s remain sexually interested. The body may change, but desire doesn't disappear. It evolves. What fades isn't the ability to feel, it's the permission to feel. And let's be clear. Losing touch with this part of yourself doesn't just impact your relationship, it affects your health. Men who maintain intimate connections report better cardiovascular function, stronger immune responses, lower rates of depression, and even improved memory. This isn't just about libido, it's about longevity. So if you've been telling yourself that desire is no longer part of your life, I want to invite you to challenge that thought. Look in the mirror. Are you really done? Or have you simply stopped giving yourself permission to feel alive again? You're not too old to desire. You're not too old to be touched. You're not too old to feel closeness, connection, and fire. You're only too old if you choose to shut the door and never open it again. But before we go any further, there's something else we need to confront, something even more physically dangerous. Because while many men believe intimacy fades with age, others make the opposite mistake. They let things go too long. And the damage it causes? It doesn't just affect the heart, it impacts the very structure of the body itself. Let's talk about that next. Mistake 3. Going too long without ejaculating. Use it or lose it. He waited too long, that's the truth of it. By the time he finally came into my office, tired, withdrawn, unsure of what was happening, his body had already started to shut down certain functions. It wasn't that he had any major disease or condition, it was something quieter, more invisible, but just as dangerous. His words were simple. "Doc, I just don't feel like myself anymore." When I asked him about his sexual activity, he looked down and said, "I haven't in years." That kind of silence, that distance from the body, it doesn't come without a cost. Here's what too many older men don't realize. When you go months, even years without ejaculating, it doesn't preserve your energy. It doesn't save your health. It does the opposite. Your body was designed for function, circulation, movement, regular flushing of the reproductive system. Without that, you set the stage for stagnation, inflammation, and even breakdown. This isn't just theory, it's science. One of the largest studies out of Harvard Medical School followed thousands of men for years and found that those who ejaculated frequently, 21 or more times per month, had a significantly lower risk of developing prostate cancer. Why? Because ejaculation helps flush out toxins and waste materials from the prostate, reducing inflammation and pressure. Think of it like clearing out the pipes. Let it sit too long, and what should be fluid becomes stuck. The system suffers. And over time, you increase the risk of serious disease. But it doesn't stop there. When a man abstains from sexual release for long periods, the blood flow to the penis becomes less consistent. Tissue elasticity begins to change. The smooth muscle fibers within the penis start to weaken. It's not dramatic, it doesn't happen all at once. But quietly, week after week, month after month, the body adapts to inactivity. And that adaptation? It's a slow march toward dysfunction. This is why men who go too long without sexual activity often find that when they do try to re-engage, things just don't work the way they used to. Erections are weaker, response time is slower, sensation is dulled, and because no one ever warned them, they feel confused, ashamed, broken. But the truth is, they're not broken. They're simply underused. And just like any other muscle or system, when you stop using it, you lose it. This doesn't mean you need a partner to maintain your health. It means you need consistency, awareness, care. Whether through intercourse or masturbation, regular sexual activity is part of keeping your body healthy. It improves blood flow, supports hormone balance, protects prostate health, and yes, it maintains erectile function. It keeps you connected to your own vitality. Too many men are waiting for the right moment, waiting for their partner to initiate, waiting for desire to come back on its own. But while they wait, the body continues to drift into dormancy, and the longer you stay disconnected, the harder it becomes to return. Don't make the mistake of believing that doing nothing is harmless. It's not. Inactivity, when it comes to sexual health, is itself a threat. It accelerates aging, increases emotional withdrawal, and signals to your entire system that this part of life is over. But it doesn't have to be. You can begin again. And even if it feels awkward or unfamiliar at first, your body will remember. It will respond to care, to touch, to attention. It just needs to be called back to life. And that brings us to something even more complicated, because while some men go too long without release, others misuse it entirely. They confuse activity with connection, pleasure with escape, and without realizing it, they start turning away from the very thing their heart needs most. Let's talk about that next. Mistake 4. Thinking it replaces connection, not complements it. I once spoke with a man named Russell. He was 68, recently widowed, and still coming to terms with the silence that had settled in his home. "I still take care of myself," he said quietly, "but it's not the same. It feels hollow." He was talking about masturbation, something he had begun doing more regularly since his wife passed. But instead of feeling closer to himself or more alive, he felt distant, disconnected, empty. That moment stuck with me because it speaks to a deeper mistake many men make as they age, treating masturbation as a replacement for connection rather than a companion to it. In the loneliness that can come with aging, retirement, the loss of a spouse, children moving away, it's tempting to find comfort in the only kind of intimacy that feels safe and familiar. For many, self-pleasure becomes not just a release, but a ritual, a distraction, a coping mechanism. And while masturbation can absolutely be a healthy part of a balanced life, when it becomes your only form of intimacy, it starts to take something from you instead of giving something to you. Because here's the truth, pleasure without presence leads to disconnection. You may be touching your body, but if your heart is walled off, if your emotions are numb, if you're using the act to avoid your pain rather than move through it, you begin to dull your capacity for deeper connection. You condition your nervous system to seek quick relief instead of lasting intimacy. And over time, that changes not just how you feel, it changes how you relate to others. I've seen men isolate themselves without even realizing it. They stop seeking companionship. They shy away from affection. They convince themselves they're fine on their own when deep down, they're aching for someone to hold, someone to listen, someone to see them. But because they've built a routine of solitary release, they forget what it feels like to be emotionally vulnerable with another person. This isn't just a psychological problem. It affects the body too. Studies show that men who lack emotional intimacy are more prone to anxiety, depression, chronic fatigue, and even cardiovascular problems. The stress of loneliness isn't just in your mind. It shows up in your heart rate, your hormone levels, your sleep patterns. And over time, the body begins to mirror the emptiness you've been carrying. There's nothing wrong with taking care of your needs alone. But when you lose sight of why you're doing it, when it becomes a way to hide from pain or a substitute for human closeness, you begin to erode your emotional strength. You teach yourself to settle for less. You numb the part of yourself that once longed for connection, that once dared to hope for love. And if you're partnered, this mistake can quietly unravel the thread between you and the person you love. You stop initiating touch. You stop opening up. You stop reaching across the bed, and one day, without even meaning to, you realize that the person beside you feels like a stranger. The real danger here isn't the act, it's the loss of intention. It's turning something that could be grounding, even sacred, into something mindless and isolating. When masturbation becomes the only touch you allow yourself, you cut yourself off from the very intimacy that keeps your spirit alive. So I invite you to reflect. Are you using this part of your life to feel more alive, or just less alone? Because there is another mistake, one that's even more widespread and more dangerous. It's not about what you're doing too much of, it's about what you're ignoring entirely. And it's the reason why, for some men, pleasure becomes harder to reach. Energy seems to vanish, and the body begins to change in ways that feel irreversible. Let's look at that next. Mistake 5. Ignoring physical and mental context. I once met a man named Paul, 72 years old, former engineer, sharp-minded, deeply thoughtful. He told me that for years he thought his decline in sexual energy was just what happens with age. He didn't ask questions. He didn't look for answers. And every time he tried to engage with himself sexually, something felt off. Numb, frustrating, like the switch had been flipped to dim, and no one ever told him how to turn it back up. What Paul didn't realize was that his body wasn't failing him. It was responding to neglect. One of the most dangerous mistakes older men make is approaching self-pleasure as if they're still 25. They try to recreate what used to work without acknowledging the reality of the body they're in today. They ignore their medications, overlook their blood pressure, forget that circulation isn't what it used to be. And most of all, they push past emotional tension that has been quietly building for years. It's not just about how often you masturbate. It's about the context, the full picture of your health physically and mentally. Your hormones, your habits, your blood flow, your state of mind. All of it matters, and when you try to force your way through arousal or climax without understanding what's really going on inside your body, you create a quiet war between effort and biology. Here's the hard truth. Your body won't respond to pressure, it responds to presence. When men ignore their current condition, When they don't hydrate, don't move, don't sleep, don't address stress or inflammation, they are setting themselves up for failure in the most intimate way. It doesn't matter how much you want it. If your heart isn't strong, your circulation isn't flowing, your hormones aren't balanced, and your mind is weighed down with anxiety or self-judgment, your body will resist. I've seen this happen more times than I can count. Men come to me worried about erectile dysfunction when the real root of the issue is everything else they've been ignoring. They're not breathing properly. They're eating processed food every day. They haven't stretched in months. They sit all day, take 3 medications that reduce blood flow, and then wonder why their body doesn't respond the way it used to. And it's not their fault. No one taught us how to care for sexual function the way we care for heart health or cholesterol. But that's the danger. This ignorance becomes costly. Not just in pleasure, but in identity, in relationships, in the way a man sees himself. When things stop working the way they used to and you don't know why, it chips away at your sense of self. You begin to believe you're broken, but most of the time you're not broken, you're simply out of sync. What's worse, many men respond by disconnecting even more. They stop trying altogether. They give up on touch, on intimacy, on desire. And the body, always listening, always adapting, begins to shut the door on that part of life. That door can be reopened, but only with care, with attention, and with a willingness to understand how all parts of your life affect the most personal moments. So here's the truth no one else is saying. You cannot separate your sexual health from the rest of your health. They are deeply connected. If you ignore one, the other suffers. But if you begin to care for the whole picture, your body, your mind, your emotions, you'll find that intimacy can return. Pleasure can return. Strength can return. You just have to meet your body where it is, not where it used to be. And now comes the part most men never consider, the part that truly determines what happens next. Because it's not just about the mistakes you've made in the past, it's about what you choose to do from here. What you do today, how you respond right now, can either restore your vitality or quietly steal it away. Let's talk about that. 6. What you do today. The most important part of your journey isn't what happened years ago. It isn't the mistakes you made in your 40s or the moments you missed in your 50s. It's not the silence you kept in your 60s or even the doubt you carry in your 70s. The most important part, the moment that matters most, is what you do today. I've had long conversations with men in their later years who carry deep regret. Regret over not asking questions sooner. Regret over letting shame steal years of intimacy. Regret over disconnecting from their partners, from themselves, from the spark that once made them feel alive. And in every one of those conversations, there's a moment when they look up and ask the same question: is it too late? And I always tell them the same thing. No, it's not. Because healing doesn't begin in the past. It begins in the present, right here, right now, with a decision. A decision to stop judging yourself for what you didn't know. A decision to stop hiding from the changes in your body. A decision to stop settling for a version of life that's quieter, smaller, and lonelier than you deserve. It begins when you say, I want more, I want to feel good again, I want to feel like me again. Maybe you've been holding back. Maybe you've convinced yourself that desire is gone, or that your best years are behind you, but let me be honest with you. There is nothing more powerful than a man who decides to reconnect with his body, with his energy, with his worth. Not because he's chasing youth, but because he refuses to let life pass by while he's still breathing. What you do today can change how you sleep tonight. It can change how you feel about yourself when you stand in front of the mirror. It can change how you speak to your partner, how you move through the world, how you carry your shoulders and lift your chin. You don't need to overhaul your entire life. You don't need to become someone else. You just need to begin. Maybe it's a short walk in the morning. Maybe it's drinking more water, eating fewer processed foods, or starting your day with a quiet moment of breath. Maybe it's something even more intimate. Touching yourself without shame, without rushing, without the noise in your head telling you it's wrong. Maybe it's a conversation you've been avoiding, a truth you've been waiting to say. a hand you've been meaning to hold again. Whatever it is, do it, because the cost of staying silent, of staying disconnected, is far greater than the discomfort of trying. Your body may have changed, but it is not done. Your mind may have grown quieter, but it is still listening. And your heart, though it may carry scars, still beats with the desire to feel alive, to feel close, to feel something more than routine. What you do today is not small. It is not meaningless. It is the beginning of everything. If you've listened this far, then I know there's a part of you that's still reaching, still curious, still willing to grow. And that part of you is stronger than anything you've lost, stronger than shame, stronger than silence, stronger than age. So take the step, ask the question, start the change, not because someone tells you to, but because you finally see that you deserve it. You are not too old. You are not too far gone. You are not out of time. You are here, and what you do today can open the door to the life you've been missing for far too long. Conclusion: you are not alone. If you've made it this far, I want to say something to you, man to man, heart to heart. You didn't just watch a video, you walked through something deeply personal, something most men your age were taught to avoid, ignore, or bury under silence. And if that stirred something inside you, some memory, some question, some quiet ache that's been sitting there for years, you're not alone. You've never been. I know what it feels like to wonder if something's wrong with you, to look back on the man you once were and feel like you're living in the shadow of him, to see your body changing and assume it means you're losing yourself. But here's what I've learned after 3 decades of listening to men, not just as a doctor, but as a witness to their truths. You are still here, and there is more of you left than you realize. You are not broken because you've changed. You're human because you're changing. That ache in your chest when you think about the way things used to be, that's not weakness. That's longing. That's life reminding you it's still in there, waiting for you to listen. So many men grow older thinking they're supposed to disappear, that their feelings are no longer welcome, that intimacy belongs to the young. That touch, desire, softness, those are things for another time. But those are lies. And the only reason they've lasted this long is because no one stood up and said the truth out loud. So let me say it for you now. You still matter. Not just to your children, not just to your doctor. You matter to yourself, your health, your pleasure, your connection, your ability to feel good in your own skin. That matters. It always has. You don't need to perform. You don't need to be who you were at 30. You just need to return to yourself. And from there, begin again. You've heard about the mistakes, treating your body like a burden, hiding your needs behind shame, giving up on touch, going too long without release, and ignoring the truth of how your health impacts everything. But now you know better. And when a man knows better, he can do better. Not in grand leaps, but in small, intentional ways. A walk, a stretch, a glass of water. A touch made with care, not judgment. A breath taken not in stress, but in permission. Your journey doesn't end here. It starts here. And I promise you, this work, this quiet return to your body, this listening you're doing now, it's worth it. It's worth it for the nights when sleep comes more easily. It's worth it for the days when you look in the mirror and don't flinch. It's worth it for the moments when you reach out to your partner, not out of obligation, but because you want to feel close again. This is the kind of change no prescription can offer. It doesn't come in a bottle or from a machine, it comes from choice, and that choice is now yours. If this message meant something to you, don't keep it to yourself. You're not the only one asking these questions. You're not the only one who needs to hear that desire is not a weakness, that pleasure is not shameful, and that growing older does not mean fading away. Tell someone. Start the conversation. Be the man who breaks the silence so that others can find their voice. And if you're still unsure, still wondering if any of this really applies to you, just remember this. You're still here. That heartbeat in your chest, that's life. That's possibility. That's your second chance. You are not alone. You never were. And today, you have the power to live like you finally believe it. These lessons are meant to inspire you to live fully and authentically. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Take a moment to reflect and share one thing you've learned and plan to apply in your own life. Let's support each other on this journey toward embracing these truths. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment with 1. If not, feel free to comment with 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and here's to living life on your own terms.